Welcome, everybody. I'm Nancy Hopkins, Director of Programs for the Presidential Precinct, and we are so delighted to be here with you today to give you a chance to hear from 4 of the dynamic emerging leaders who are participating in this year's Global Leadership Forum here in Charlottesville. The theme of this year's forum is Collaborating for Social Impact. And over the course of around 4 days, we have welcomed 23 emerging leaders here to dig into the framework of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda, talking about innovative solutions to some of the world's most pressing, complex problems. Before we introduce our panelists, I'd like to say a bit about the Presidential Precinct. We're a Charlottesville-based nonprofit organization that's a partnership among 2 premier public universities, the University of Virginia and William & Mary, and several historic sites here in Central Virginia, including James Monroe's Highland, James Madison's Montpelier, and beautiful Morven Farm, where we're lucky to be hosted today. In terms of the format of our panel, we thought we could have about 30 minutes of conversation among our panelists, and then we would love to turn it over to questions from our audience, and really look forward to hearing about the issues that you would like to get into. So maybe we could do a quick round of self-introductions, kind of go down the line, maybe tell us your name and where you're from, and what field you're working in.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for having us, and thank you to the Presidential Precinct as well. My name is Chewe Mulenga. I am from Zambia. My specialty is on gender, masculinities, and mental health.
Thank you, Nancy, for having us, and thanks to President Precinct as well. My name is Meenakshi Monga. I am an Atlas Core Fellow from India, and I'm passionate about connecting dots 360-degree, integrating design thinking, positive collaboration to combat challenges for disaster risk response, for health and education and child development.
Hi, I would like to thank you for this great opportunity. My name is Abdullah Nofal and I'm from Syria. My background is the humanitarian field. I'm currently shifting to more about human rights.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Candice Marie Andrews. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am dealing with women and girls in domestic violence situations.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for those introductions. So just to build on this a bit, now that we know the fields you're working in, we would love to hear a little bit more about what drew you to this work. So what's your motivation to work in the social sector like you do? Was there a certain aha moment where you knew that you wanted to dedicate your career to this issue, or some specific experience that brings you to this work? Candice, maybe we can start with you.
Sure, thank you. Well, I started off in the education sector as a secondary school theater arts teacher, and then along the journey, I lost 4 individuals from my church, and they were victims of domestic violence. They were all murdered, and it was at that moment I decided I need to do something about it, and I need to use my God-given talent of theater and apply it at the communal level. I also decided that girls needed to be empowered, and they needed to know about this epidemic that is plaguing my country. And I felt I needed to take a step up, and this was my moment of discovery and understanding that I need to take a deep dive into what is really affecting us at the community level, so that persons have an opportunity to live and to experience life and everything that is good about our society.
Actually, like in 2011, I graduated from my university. I studied economic, and in that moment, like I was dreaming to find a job in the private sector and like as accountant or something similar. But then, unfortunately, the crisis started in Syria, and there was like increasing need, and there was like a lot of beneficiary, a lot of affected population. At that moment, I feel like there is someone need to take step and try to help these people. That's why I started searching how I can join the humanitarian field, and I was lucky to start with the Red Cross in 2012. And since that time, I work in this field, trying like I do my best to help the people with food and non-food item, and that's what I was doing in Syria.
I think for me, I started my career by working in the private healthcare sector, but things were relatively monotonous, and I felt the need that I have the capacity to do much more, but I'm not doing enough. So in 2015, I spoke to my mentor and told him that, okay, I really want to work in disaster risk response and really implement things and get on the ground and get the things going. And luckily, I mean, I feel that I'm really really lucky to have this, but I had a chance to be one of the first responders, and I ended up spending a lot of time and leading a team to in Nepal and different parts of it. And the things that I saw, the empathy that people have despite of the challenges that they went, they did not only had that one major earthquake, but there were like multiple ripples and ripples of mini post earthquake shakes. So I think for me, that really was my aha moment. I felt that it's in me that I can do it. I am fearless and I should utilize it fully. And from there on, it was no looking back.
Interesting. Nice. Those are amazing stories, guys. Where do I start from? Right after high school completion, I was recruited and trained as a volunteer peer educator, an organization called Restless Development. Then it used to be called Students Partnership Worldwide. I was sent, so I come from a city, the capital city of Zambia called Lusaka, but then I was sent to a place called Mukushi, and that's like in rural Zambia, and I conducted a series of sexual reproductive health education to grades 5 up to 12 for a period of 9 months. So I was already integrated in the system of sexual reproductive health, HIV/AIDS prevention, and so on and so forth, conducting community awareness raising events. But then fast forward to 2014, a colleague and I are having coffee somewhere in Lusaka, and we're talking about how there was a story running on social media of a woman that had killed her husband. And she then said it was because he kept on abusing her, and so that was, she retaliated. And while everybody was concentrating on that, my friend and I started talking about how there's a missing intervention there, how people are not willing to listen to the woman's story and what she has gone through and what happens after that. And then we tried to align that with other stories of how women were being abused and sexually assaulted, and everyone paid more attention to the perpetrators and forgetting what happens to the woman after that. And so we helped set up an organization called Psych Health Zambia, which provides counseling and psychological services to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And so that is where it began. But then if you look at now, 2019, gender inequality remains one of the most pressing barriers to equality, to human rights, to economic development, inclusion and opportunities for women. So this is why I'm still in this field.
Great. Thank you for sharing those personal stories with us. And I think not only did we get a glimpse into your personal motivation, I think one thread for me that ties these stories together is your willingness to take some career risks and to try to be innovative, to take the road less traveled. One thing I wanted to ask you, so accelerating progress on these sustainable development goals is going to take new and creative approaches, right? Business as usual is not going to get the job done if we're going to accomplish any of them by 2030. Do you feel that young people in your country are seen as part of the solution? You know, are young people encouraged to start up NGOs and businesses and social enterprises? And is there like an infrastructure to support that innovation? You know, and what types of support are available for people like you who want to take what might be considered a more non-traditional career path? I'd be curious to hear from you, Meenakshi. Yeah, do you want to start?
I think some people will be really surprised, maybe some not, but India has the largest population of youth across the world, 35%, and that is 356 million youth between the age of 15 and 25. So that really, it boggles my mind, like how much power and how much innovation, how much passion they have. So if we talk about really what, if youth are aware about the SDG goals, do they see this as a path of in their career? Is ministry or governments are doing anything? I would say yes to all of that. To begin with, I would say that youth, I think we all know that they may not have enough finances to donate, but they have enough passion, they have enough time, and they are really they really believe in giving back to the society. So creating a platform wherein you derive youth from all across the country, and if we tell them that this is, if you are passionate about one particular area, for example, education, would you be willing to spend 2 to 4 hours on the weekend by going to a school and taking some extra classes for exams similar to SAT? Like in the United States. Secondly, when it comes to what government has done, so Ministry of HRD, they have actually, the Prime Minister has actually derived a fund for millennials and youth. So in this step, what they are doing is they are inviting a lot of ideas. They are ensuring that everybody who's applying for this particular fund is getting all the resources, getting a platform to not only showcase their projects, but also connecting them with other resources, maybe collaboration with different companies, collaboration with people who have same agenda or are passionate about the similar one particular domain, for example, education, a technology, a design, so on and so forth. So. Yeah.
Well, interesting to see that level of government support to support innovation. So, Abdullah, I was struck by what you said, how you were thinking of, okay, I'm going to go into a career in business or finance, and then you find yourself a humanitarian. How was that switch, and did people wonder how did he wind up there? What is he thinking? Was your family supportive? What was that transition and shift like for you?
Yeah, actually, in general, as Syrian people, they have a lot of energy, young people, but unfortunately, Syria as a country doesn't benefit from this energy. That's why there was a lot of movement from Syria outside Syria. There was a lot of young people leaving Syria. And now in Europe and UK, all around, there is a lot of people who has a master or PhD from good university, but all of them, they are in Europe and they are working in Europe. I feel sorry, why that happened, because we need these young people to go back and work in Syria. But the point in my case, I was lucky to survive in Syria since 2011 until 2018 when I left Syria the last year. But not every young person has the same opportunity, especially because my case, I start immediately work in the humanitarian field. And when you need the first step, and then the career will take you smoothly in this field. And yeah, I start with one of the organization, it's the International Committee of the Red Cross, then I shift to another one, then I end up with the UN. I mean, not every young person has the opportunity. And the last point I want to mention, for all of us, even though now we are here, having this great opportunity, we need to remember there's a lot of young people who dream to be here, and maybe they are smarter than us, they work hard, but circumstances doesn't help everyone. Sometimes we need luck to be to get the opportunity. It's not just about how you smart or how you are hard worker.
Yeah, no, that's a powerful point about humility in terms of where we wind up and the opportunities we have. So. Kenneth and Chewe, I wanted to turn our attention to the Sustainable Development Goals. We've talked about them a lot this week, and I mentioned yesterday that I feel that people in the United States, young people especially, these are not top of the mind as they should be for people in the United States. What does it look like in your country? Are young people aware and engaged around the SDGs? Is it part of the conversation? Is it a useful framework for talking about challenges in your country? Do you think awareness could be increased? Sort of what's the current state of play with young people in the SDGs in your respective countries?
That's a great question, because while I was at the education industry where at the secondary school, you would know what is on their minds based on what they say. And SDGs and development, it was not a part of their conversations. So I think what we can do within the models of our programs geared towards the development of our youths, we need to make more deliberate and direct inclusion of the SDGs, because it's something that you would only be exposed to if you are in certain parts of the island. And when I mean certain parts, means the parts that they have more access to resources, they have better education systems. So I think SDGs is not something that it's directly spoken of with our youth, basically in Trinidad and Tobago, but there are programs that incorporate them. But I would want to see those leaders make direct conversation surrounding the SDGs and not just have it as part of your programming, but part of your conversation and dialogue.
How about you, Chewe? What's it look like in your country?
I've been very fortunate that I've been aligned and worked with organizations that advance multiple SDGs, and particularly SDG number 3 and number 5. And so I've had the opportunity to interact with lots of young people, especially in Zambia. And I think a question of whether they are knowledgeable about the SDGs, I think I think that cannot be questioned. A lot of young people in Zambia are very familiar with the SDGs. They are passionate on implementing them. But I think what I've learned from this forum, and I think which should be implemented in Zambia, and I'll see how we can have that replicated, is to reduce the SDGs to what we need now as a country. So while all these SDGs are significant and they need to be implemented, but I think we should be able to prioritize them as the forum has done. And so I think that is the direction that the Zambian youth should take. The challenge there is because we're all in different disciplines and we're all aligned to different SDGs, you obviously want to say this SDG is more important than the other one. And so you fail to align, to prioritize which ones you should go for. But I think that is what we need to work on. Otherwise, the Zambian youth is passionate, is knowledgeable, is excited. But yeah.
Well, you've done a perfect setup, actually, for my next question. So I'm going to kick the question back to you, and then would love to hear what others think. I was reading, I think it was over the weekend, that the Gates Foundation just announced a massive investment in gender equality. So if you had that level of resources yourself, what would you choose to focus on in Zambia? Which SDG do you think needs the most attention, the top 1 or 2? Where do you think you could get the most bang for the buck in terms of investment?
I'm glad you've asked, actually. In my former life, if I would call it that, before I got into this kind of work, gender equality and mental health and looking at toxic masculinities, I used to be an entrepreneur, and I actually ran a business in Zambia called Dinda Science Solutions. At some point, I did my employ 21 young Zambians. Obviously, it's not a good story. It doesn't end well. But then I realized that while economic development is important and while employment is important, unless these people that we want to employ and these people that we want to develop the economy, if their wellness is not taken care of, if their mental health, if their physical health is not taken care of, if they're not getting the same opportunities, then I think it is chase after the wind. And so for me, I'm very excited with the Gates Foundation with the pledged 1 billion towards gender equality, because I think it should be one of the main things that should be prioritized. I think SDG number 3 as well should be prioritized. That said, I still believe that economic development should be priority. And I think, is it SDG number 16, which talks about strengthening systems, because obviously there's a question of leadership in every country. And so the only way we're going to have all these SDGs, the only way they're going to work is not to depend on leaders, but to depend on the systems. When systems are strengthened, then leaders cannot abuse the systems. They cannot be corrupt. They cannot take advantage of their governance, because systems will be able to provide checks and balances.
Great perspectives. I'd love to hear from each of you, actually. If you were to be able to make a massive investment, where would you invest in your country?
I honestly see all the sustainable development goal thread very well, but if we just talk about, what should be the priority for India right now, I think it is to invest on poverty, zero hunger, education, and healthcare. They all are, I'm sorry, I won't be able to prioritize in degree 1, 2, or 3, or 4, but they are equally important. On the other hand, I strongly feel while the investment is needed in these goals, number 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have enough resources. So I strongly feel that we need to identify, acknowledge, and utilize existing resources. And that would include the youth, their timings, and also the natural resources. Because the country itself is so huge, there are parts of India which have really great quality of wind, great quality of soil. So optimally utilizing those resources could be a great way to invest.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. May I take you?
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, like every time I have a look on the 17 goals, like I have like a strange feeling about like how they prioritize this 17 goal. For example, like we start 1 until 16, and then we find peace, justice, and strong institution. Like peace is number 16, but I just wonder how we can have a real life without peace. Like how we can solve how we reach zero hunger without peace. Like when you have conflict and war, you have violence, you cannot achieve any one of these goals. In my opinion, the first thing we need to have it in any society, not just when you have war, is we have peace. That include the negative peace when we absence of violence, and then we need to speak about the positive peace, which include the social peace and the strong institution. Like I think like internationally we should like focus on peace in the beginning, because peace, then you have good economics, then you have normal life. And the second one, it will be of course no poverty. Like we need people to find a source of livelihood, then they will be able to take care of his food, he will be able to take care of his health, he will be able to teach his children. That's what I see.
Great.
Yes. Permit me to use this phrase, this saying, this quotation. It says, true religion is taking care of the widow and the orphans. And I am a living case study of what opportunities can do for a quote-unquote orphan. I lost my dad at age 10, and my mother would be considered in our community, of course, a widow. And one of the things that I have seen work in my community, I am a part of a community with about 6 different women who lost their husbands. And woman empowerment is very important. If you empower a woman, you empower a nation. That is where I sit. You know, so I think for sure gender equality is indeed interesting, where empowering the woman, and not just empowering the woman, but allowing the woman to empower boys and girls, because these are the future, right? Another thing I would look at is this idea of good governance, and good governance being able to translate that into the goal of decent work and economic growth. Because if you don't allow persons to get a decent pay, a pay that will allow them not just to take care of their basic needs of food, water, and shelter, but to develop themselves, personal development is key. And if persons have access to these funds to develop themselves, we would be amazed to what the world would look like in the next 10 years. So for Trinidad right now, Trinidad and Tobago, I believe gender equality should be a priority right now, and decent work and economic growth.
Nice. Very persuasive arguments from all of you about which should be a priority. And I think that sequencing question is a really interesting one. So thanks for those perspectives. So you just mentioned the idea about systems. Systems are important, but another thing we've talked about this week is that leadership is important, right? That we do need both to work hand in hand to advance change. And as I don't need to tell you all, you know, trying to work day in and day out as a social change agent, it's hard work, right? To lean into those difficult issues and difficult conversations. So I would like to hear a bit about your thoughts on leadership. So when it comes to leadership, do you have a role model in mind? Who inspires you? And what qualities do you think make a good leader?
I can start. I am really inspired by what we have heard from our speakers earlier this week, including Rick, Mr. Jaitley earlier this morning, and many others. So I think, in my opinion, one have to have a vision. Like Rick also mentioned, that you have to have a vision and you have to own it, and you should be able to work towards creating a better version of yourself each day, every day. And also, I think what really inspires me or keeps me at my toes to keep on working, it's actually children of my community. It's mind blowing that when you just before coming to the United States, I launched this project called Community Entrepreneurship Labs. So the idea of the lab is to create entrepreneurial mindset early on in life, and so that children have a not only understanding about all the sustainable development goals, how it not only affects people around them, but it affects them, and it is going to affect them in the future as well, and how they have the capacity to do anything and everything. It's about just tapping into the talent and identifying problems and working towards positive collaboration and co-creating sustainable solutions. So,
Great. Love that. Who inspires you all?
Actually, I'm not sure like if everyone know or hear about George Soros. This is my like role model. He is a man from Hungary originally, and he is in the US now. Actually, like this guy start like as any businessman from zero. He has like a difficult beginning, then he start to be a rich man. In the same time, he never forgot his social responsibility. Like he do his best to be helping the young people to have like study abroad, to get scholarship and this kind of a program. Just the last year, he shift like 18 billion from the family ownership to the organization called Open Society Foundation, which is like his organization. And in the same time, like when I ask or when I check the feedback about this guy, I find all the bad people hate him. Like in Europe, like the bad people in Europe hate him. The bad people in the Arab area hate him. Same in the US. That's why I find him like he's like a good example to be a leader.
Interesting. Great perspectives. How about you?
This question is a bit emotional, but it's coming from a real place. Who inspires me the most is my mother, because she is a fantastic leader. She's a living legend. She runs an NGO, which is my household. It's not easy to run my home. I am one of 5 children. We also live with my grandmother, who's a cancer survivor. And I've seen my mother sacrifice everything just to make sure that her children has access to education. And some of the qualities that I would like to highlight that I believe are good qualities that makes a great leader is her ability to take responsibility. And we learned this week that responsibility is not just, okay, I'll take the blame, but it's about responding and how do we handle situations and how do we navigate through the problems. Another one is she's a great motivator. And I think we don't have leaders that motivate. We have leaders that delegate and instruct. And, you know, once you can bring the best out of somebody, and we learned this week about making that person the best version of themselves, giving them the right environment to grow. And I think she has allowed me the room and the space to grow. And I think she's my inspiration. And if I could have 5% of her strength, I'll be a Wonder Woman.
I think we all need some of this woman's strength. So, great. How about you, Chewe?
I'm going to recite a quote, and I want to see if the audience or these guys will know who it is, and then quickly explain why. He said, "Sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. May you be that great generation. Let your greatness blossom."
Who?
Nelson Mandela. I think I'm inspired by him because of his selflessness. This guy was in prison for 27 years. He came out, he only became president for 1 term. And even when the entire world wanted him to continue, he said he couldn't because he believed it wasn't about him. It was about service to others. And that amazes me. It shows that you should always look at the bigger picture, that it shouldn't just be about you. There's somebody who's going to do more than you can. There's somebody that is going to be smarter than you. There's somebody that you shouldn't think that you're the one who's going to, while you're inspired to change, you shouldn't think that it starts and ends with you. And I was actually talking to a friend before I came here, And he was asking me, why are you always posting on Facebook and Instagram and saying you're doing this and you're doing that? And I said, I was born in Kafue. It's a small fishing town in Zambia. I want the boys and the girls in Kafue to know that they can be anything that they want to be, that cannot stop them. And so if I post that I'm in Washington, D.C., if I post that I'm in Paris, if I post that I'm in London, I'm not showing them that I'm having the time of my life. I'm showing them that they can be anything that they want to be. They can be even more. If I can achieve that, imagine those that are born in Lusaka. Imagine those that are born in Quito. Yeah, so Madiba takes it.
Great. All right. Thank you. We've started a great discussion here, and I would love to turn it over to some questions from the audience. I actually just got a couple of questions from our live stream that I'd like to ask first. So folks watching from around the world have some questions for you. So the first question is from Onsa. And Onsa wants to know, do you think that positive discrimination for women, so giving women preferential opportunities, is a good solution for gender equality?
I think he's a good person to explain, but I would love to add some points.
Start, and please. So Chewe can start us, and anybody else, please add.
I think that, so firstly, I'm serving at Promundo, US. Promundo is a global leader in promoting, advancing gender equality and promoting nonviolence. And they do this, or we do this by engaging boys and men. And so I think while we're promoting gender equality, we need to make sure that boys and men should be part of the story. They should be seen as allies. And when the boys and men are part of it, then it doesn't become positive discrimination for women. Because boys understand that they're not doing women a favor by promoting gender equality. They're doing it for themselves as well. It's, if a woman is economically empowered and she's my wife, then I know I have half the burden because I only have to do the other half. So I do not think that becomes discrimination. But also, we must be clear that while we're promoting gender equality, there are certain things that we're doing that do not undermine women, that women should not be seen that they are weak, and so we're trying to make them strong. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah.
I
Would anybody like
completely,
to add?
I completely agree with what you're saying, Chewy. But in my opinion, I think gender equality is not only about men and women. It is about equality for all the genders. So ensuring that gender equality is not like doing something or changing policies or making some rules that make women more comfortable. It is not that. It is about ensuring that all the genders have equality. The word equality itself is a main component here. Additionally, it is like having an understanding that it is your ethical responsibility to treat the other person as a person, to treat them equally. If you want a glass of water, the other person deserves the glass of water as well. So it's more about equality than dwelling into which gender it is.
I think also if we look at the graphics of the goals, we would see an equal sign in between. And I like to see gender equality as a even equation. You know, most of the times the equation is imbalanced, and most of the times we lack the collaborative part of the equation where we need to have discussion, we need to have dialogue. And from where I sit in Trinidad and Tobago, the men will go at the bars, they will vent, and they would have their discourse. And the women will get their hairs done at the saloon and have their discourse. But there's no place where we come together and we meet at this junction where we can say, I like you, I like what you do, but you can try and do this better, and you can try and support me this way. So I think there's not enough dialogue and discussion about support mechanisms for both ends. And most of the times we try and we deal with the leaves of the tree or the stem of the tree, but we don't get at the root. And the root of the problem is that we stop talking to each other. We stay in rooms and we WhatsApp to communicate, and nothing gets done. So I think it needs to be of how can I support you more? What can I do to support you more? And what are the resources and knowledge we need to implement those practices?
Great. Yeah, I like what you said about the roots. I have another question I'd like to put in from the live stream, and it's a question from Serere, who is asking, What are some of the barriers to youth engagement in the SDGs and in SDG programs in your countries? What is blocking youth from getting more involved? What do you think blocks them?
Policies.
Policy.
Policy, and not just policy. I think the way we model and program initiatives, I think it somewhere along the line we miss certain key points. And one of the main barriers, I think, is our education system. So our curriculum. What are we putting in our curriculum that is failing our youth? Or what are we integrating in our curriculum that will start our youth to question and to be individuals that would engage in discussion and dialogue? I think we are just presenting a mandate that is being repeated over and over, and there's no system of monitoring or evaluating any progress. How do we chart progress? And one of our main issues, and it's something within the Caribbean, but more from where I sit, is the problem of notation. We don't keep the facts. We don't gather the data. We just put certain systems in place and pray it works, you know. So I think there needs to be a proper system of notation, and we need to look at our curriculum because there's something missing.
Something missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? What's missing in your country?
Yeah, I think I would like to add that, and I would like to quote Scott Beale here, and he says that talent is universal, opportunities are not. So, like I said, I mean, India is having one of the largest population of youth across the world. But knowledge about what opportunities are there, knowledge about that you are able, understanding about, yes, everything is possible, you just need to ask, speak, reach out. And thirdly is, I would say, the education system. I mean, gone are the days when we can only be like doctors, engineers, or teachers. There are career paths beyond that, and they are equally respectable and equally needed right now. So I would probably urge Indian government to take steps towards strengthening these components.
Great. I would love to take a question from our audience who's here with us today. Does anybody have a question for one or more of our panelists? Please, Chris.
My name is Chris from Nigeria, and I want to say thank you very much to this wonderful panel. You guys have been very amazing and insightful. I have a question for Chewe from Zambia. Chewe, I think that you inspire a lot, and being a brother from Africa, I have that hope that you're going to be one president of Zambia that will do great things. So I look forward to collaborating with you. I have a question for you, and it is within the context of economic growth and decent work. You know, you said that at the point you employed, about 21 people who, you had a business that you were running. What, like you said, now it didn't end well. So which means, the business, something happened to it. What would you have done differently? And how would you have, looking at decent work, economic growth, how would you have used it to strengthen the economy of the country?
Great. And I'll repeat the question in case our online audience was not able to hear that clearly. Thank you, Chris. So question for Chewe. Given your experience as an entrepreneur with a business that, if we understood correctly, failed, which a lot of businesses do. So what would you do differently, keeping in mind this goal that we all have of a robust economy and job creation? So anything that you would have done differently, lessons learned?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, after the business failed, I went to the UK to study for a master's. And my dissertation thesis was I was investigating the role of government policy in entrepreneurship development in Zambia. So I realized that one of the findings was that lots of SMEs or MSMEs in Zambia do not even know about the entrepreneurship policy. I didn't even know about it myself. If my professor in the UK hadn't mentioned that maybe this is what you should look at, I wouldn't even have known about it. And so the business failed because I thought that there wasn't any government support, and yet I did not even know about the government support in itself. And I think this transcends beyond just entrepreneurship development. It goes to even this work that we are doing. We attend so many forums and so many networking events, but then when we go back home, we do not want to engage our governments to see what is it that they're doing and how can we place ourselves into those opportunities. And so I think if I was to do anything different, I would engage and dialogue with the government a bit more and see how I can get support from them.
Great. Well, it's my job also to keep one eye on the clock, and I regret to say that our time is almost up. So if I might take the liberty, I'd like to do a lightning round to close us out. So we're more than halfway through our Global Leadership Forum this week with all of you. Very quickly, would love to hear from each of you. What is one takeaway that you've already gained that you feel that you can apply to your work back home? Could be a skill, could be a perspective. What's something that you're going to take home with you?
Well, it's a difficult choice, honestly, because we learned so much, and it was so reflective that I'm still kind of absorbing everything in. But one thing that really I'm gonna take back and share with millions of people back in home will be empathetic. Believe in yourself and believe in the power of positive collaboration. We are all in this world with the same motive, so be empathetic and collaborate.
Great.
Okay.
How about you, Abdullah?
Yeah, actually what I want to say, like, for me, the most important point in this forum, it was like the partnership. How like we are here through a huge network and partnership, like from the President organization, the University of Virginia, then the private sector. All these people work together until they achieve this goal. I mean, that's what we can go and reflect it in our country, how we can create partnership, and we should believe like one person or one organization, they cannot do nothing alone. But when we gather like 3 or 4 people to achieve one goal, we can achieve some things. Like, and I see like that as a real example. Even though we enjoy it, but I'm sure it was not easy job for the people who work until they achieve this goal. And I just wanna like conclude with one point. Like it's for me, for us, for the people who are watching on Facebook. I wanna say, we don't need to wait until to be Bill Gates or Steve Jobs to have a social impact. All what we can do, like we can dedicate 10% of our resources as an individual, as from our time, from our money, from our knowledge to have a social impact. And like if we do that, I think globally there will be something. Yeah.
One thing I will take away is to always be inspired and to look for inspiration in everything. This week has been very inspiring for me, being around all these great minds. And I think one other thing I will take is to that self-reflection and that self-auditing, realizing these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, these are the things that I can improve. And there are certain things as a leader I believe I'm not there yet, and I would really, really want to dedicate some really good time and energy in developing those skills.
I think mine is similar to what Abdullah said. Looking at the different presenters that came, different style of presentation, different ways and things that they were talking about. You look at the organizers, different people, different styles. Looking at the participants, we are all different backgrounds. It then therefore means that we need different voices for us to make one big voice. And so I think we need to network more, to partner more, and to interact more.
Great. Well, I'm glad we could end on this note because you're certainly leaving all of us inspired, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share your ideas and perspectives with us, and look forward to continuing the conversation that we've started here for the rest of the week and to probing around on some of these issues as we go forward. So thanks so much. Thanks to all of you for being with us today. Great. And thank you so much to Tupperware Brands Corporation, our wonderful, generous sponsor for the Global Leadership Forum. This could not happen without you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm from the Czech Republic, from Prague.
I'm a Sangar. I'm from Lahore, Pakistan.
I'm Sanchari Chatterjee and I'm from India.
My name is Ayub Rahmouni. I'm from Morocco and I'm here at the Global Leadership Forum to be inspired first. You can meet really great people that really lead the change in their communities.
What this week brought me is the opportunity to see a bigger picture, to see my work within the global challenges that we all are facing.
The best part about the Global Leadership Forum is that it is really global. There are people from 16 countries coming together in a week's time and getting to know each other better, and also knowing about the vulnerabilities we share as a whole globe together.
I have this obsession of reading quotes, and I really love this quote by Brownie Rice. She's the first female sales executive of Tupperware brands, where she says that no matter who you are, you always have something you can give that the society get from no other source. So it's like each and every individual has something to contribute. Just starting is important, and having an idea and having a passion to do something is important.
At times I feel that the system may have failed us, but then who is going to change that system? We as young people. It's us who have to be moving really fast. We can't sleep right now. We have to be that power, that energy has to keep going like a horsepower engine.
I'm sure that during this week you will change how you see them. Participating here will definitely touch something in you.
I certainly believe that yes, we as one person cannot change millions, but yes, we can change ourselves. We can change our neighbor. We can change our family members. We all have a sphere of influence. Let's at least start from there.